Villagers, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. It is very important that we educate ourselves and undo certain things that were done to us. Because as a people, all these years or decades, we have known ourselves. A lot of things that they have written concerning the African turns out not to be true. Because one, they told us that we were discovered by some people. When they already came and met us living here, how do you discover people who were already existing? We take our rivers. They claim they discovered the rivers and a whole lot of things. But the good things that the African has done, they decided to erase it. They said that Africans arrived in the United States of America in the 16th centuries. But history has said that we arrived there before this 16th century. And according to some historians, the Africans were the first people to even arrive in America. And that is why today we have some of our brothers and sisters in the United States of America, the blacks, who claim that they are the foundational Americans or black Americans because they were never taken out of the continent. They have tried everything possible to bury the good aspects of the African. And for us to know where we are going and how to empower ourselves, we really need to know who we are. It is very important that the African gets to know everything that has to do with us. If not, when we continue to be feeding ourselves with this, it makes the African weak. And why are these people always trying to make sure everything good that has to do with the African is wiped out? Because these things make us powerful.
Ask any youngster, or any adult for that matter, when did Africans first come to America? And the answer will be in 1619 as indentured servants. Well, that answer is no longer valid, according to Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, author of They Came Before Columbus. Dr. Van Sertima, an anthropologist and historian, is a graduate of London University and Rutgers Graduate School of Anthropology. He is also a literary critic and has been honored by the Nobel Committee of the Swedish Academy by being asked to nominate candidates for the Nobel Prize in Literature for the past 5 years. Currently, he is Professor of African Studies at Rutgers University. Dr. Van Sertima, up until relatively recently, what had scholars been saying about Africans in the pre-Columbus period in the Americas?
Well, there is a very profound distortion of African history. Almost all of the books that have been written on Africa have been studies of primitives, of people in small communities just barely scratching the soil, people in jungles, etc. There is no appreciation of the fact that after the conquest, or just around the time of the conquest and after, you have a tremendous breaking up of African societies. It's not just a question of tearing these people out of their country, throwing them across the Atlantic as slaves, but the smashing of many things. It's as if you had dropped several hydrogen bombs on Africa. So that what you see afterwards is just the remnants, the ruins of the worst in Africa. The African, therefore, the image of the African ancestor has been built up upon the lowest common denominator. When we go back to European history, European heritage, we always go back to its great heroes, its magnificent achievements. But when we go back into Africa, historians and anthropologists have always looked for the worst. When in fact you begin to study African history seriously, and recent archaeological discoveries have now throwing up remarkable things. They've found within recent years, for example, that the Africans were producing steel in Tanzania, East Africa, 1500 years before the Europeans. That they had not only entered the age of iron before Europe, but they had jumped into the age of steel. Now, what has happened to this? If you go back into Tanzania today, you cannot find this. You cannot find that kind of development. Therefore, you begin to be aware that colonization, the conquest of Europe, didn't drag people up. It actually smashed things that were happening there. Now these things are coming out of the earth because archaeology is beginning to recover these things.
People right next here. Okay. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. I mean, never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. They weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa. So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Mesoamerica, he started noticing things. There are lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So he observed so many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece called Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, unfortunately, this is the 1920s, so as yet no serious archaeological evidence had been done to, or work had been done to support his botanical theories, because everyone was over raiding tombs in Egypt and things like that. Not Howard Carter. So he didn't have a whole lot of other stuff than the names to support him. However, he knew that other clues must exist. For example, he pointed out that Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No. So what's interesting about that, so upon returning to Spain, is that he actually took the spearheads and he sent them away and they had them assayed, and it turned out to be that these spearheads were covered in this metal, this alloy that the inhabitants...
What do you do with Columbus's diary that says the Africans know a way to the west, but it goes around the doldrums, we would never survive? What do you do with that? What do you do with all of this written literature and history that says Abubakar II of Mali sent 200 ships to the west? One came back and said they were afraid that the others disappeared. And then to have Balboa find this village that looks just like Mali, where he was, what do you do with this information? You ignore it. What do you do with Balboa's diary that says we came upon this African village in the isthmus? How did these Africans get here? So what do you do with the heads in Mexico that you find at San Lorenzo, at Tres Zapote? Some things that are not comfortable for white people. They're not comfortable for them to talk about the possibility that Africans were here before the Europeans. Why? To preserve the myth of white superiority. That's what our whole educational process is devoted to. What do you do with this whole history? This is a written history, my dear. Written. I'm not talking about hearsay. I'm not talking about a griot said this. I'm not talking about something handed down from one generation to the other through voice. I'm talking about written history of the Egyptians.
You still have the narrative that there is nothing we have been able to do. We are conquered. We are made weak. And that is why even today, we are still teaching the same things to our kids. And the child believes so much in these people. All of us believe that Yellow Papa has the power to do everything. They invented this, they invented that, they did that, they discovered that. But the African hasn't seen the power that we have and what we have been able to do. But our brothers and sisters, it's not that you are the foundational Africans or Black Americans, you are the indigenous. Because according to history, when Master Musa sent other people to get there, the last barge couldn't reach there because they have it that their brothers and sisters who were there, they did not make it. They went back and they were not there. So, a lot of us were taken out of here back into America during the slave trade. A lot of things are hidden from us as Africans. And because we don't know our history, we don't know who we are, we tend to feel inferior in the presence of other people. Today, even in our schools, we are taught about the great things of other people, living the great warriors, the brave women, our kings, our queens, who fought and defeated them, who gave us the independence that we have today. Why? If you know your great power, you become powerful. You fight for yourself. But today we are weak and we are not ready to fight as a result of the narrative that we have that there is nothing we can do. We are not even seeing the greatness in us because of the stories we are fed and the history we are fed. And we are still learning at school. When you ask a lot of students today, they tell you about the great things of other countries and not the great things in Africa. People don't even know our great writers. Why? We are so taught about them every day. They are not teaching our children the great people like Nkrumah, Sankara, and the rest in school. So the child grows up knowing so much about the Western world without knowing anything about us. That is why a lot of people are fighting against this educational system. Their view is that this system is only making us Western instead of teaching us how to become Africans. And we cannot become Westerners and expect that Africa will be great. The reason to which Africa we are not moving forward is as a result of everything of ours being Westernized. Like P.O. Lumumba said, the greatest person you should fear as an African is the ones that said they have been to school. Because we have been brainwashed to the point that even when the truth is there, we find it difficult to accept it. We still want to be quoting because we are taught how to quote other people and not to quote ourselves. The moment we try to be quoting other people, the power that we have in us is taken out. As Africans, we need to understand that everything that was written was not done in our favor. That is why we are still here in Africa in this 21st century. And we don't believe in ourselves. When we are faced with situations, instead of us to look inward for our problems to be solved, we tend to look out for external help. To the point that even the generation that we have today have this idea that when things are going bad, we don't need to look within ourselves. We need to call for people to come in and help us. We are made so with the educational system we have, with the history we are taught, and with everything that is surrounding us. And when we learn to know who we are, the power that we have, it is going to help us for the African to emancipate himself and reconscientize the mentality so that we'll see the power that we have in us. As Africans, we need ourselves. We are never less. We are only suppressed. Our voices are suppressed. That is why you are not learning about Nkrumah. You don't even have access to their books, Sankara and the rest. They are trying to bury your greatness. And the time for us in this information era to learn who we are is today. When you know who you are, you see the power that you have in you. We are not inferior like the way we are made to believe. We must break that chain by learning and unlearning what they have done to us. That was why Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can do that. So we don't need other people in this journey to come and help us. If you are ready to emancipate yourself, you need to learn all these things. History, all these things will help you to reconscientize your mentality and for you to move forward as an African. We are great. We are great. And why is it that any other person is targeting the African? We'll look at it in maybe one of the episodes. Then you know the power in you. If there is nothing good in you, why do you think everybody is scared of you? We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's colonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in the United States of America.